Alright, this is just a forewarning that these video notes may be kind of long because now we're going to be factoring, but then we're going to take factoring a step further and do some solving. So, as you watch a couple of these, if you start to get the gist of the idea of what we're supposed to do, it will probably be faster to just go through and try to do these on your own and check your answers with the key. But if you've been struggling with factoring, please, by all means, watch this video because it's going to be super helpful for just working through factoring some problems. So, let's get started. Solving polynomial equations by factoring. It first says move all the terms to one side and set the equation equal to 0. Okay, that's how we've always solved polynomial equations. 2, it says factor the polynomial completely. Again, how we've always solved polynomial equations. 3 says set each factor equal to 0 and solve for each x value, which we've done. For quadratic equations, you can solve by square roots, you could solve by completing the square, or you could solve by the quadratic formula. It says simplify all irrational and complex solutions completely. So those are our notes. So now it's just a bunch of examples. Number 1, already said equal to 0. Awesome. Now we need to do our factoring. This is a greatest common factor, so we can pull an x out of here, right? That's like dividing both of those terms by x. That would leave us with x squared plus 1 is equal to 0. Okay. The two factors are these two things that are put together by a multiplication sign. So one of the factors is x. We're going to set that equal to 0. The other factor is x squared plus 1. We're going to set that equal to 0 as well. X equal to 0 already gives us a solution, so that's awesome. On this other side, I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. That gives us x squared is equal to negative 1. And then here's some review. Take the square root of both sides. Remember, what that does is it now puts a plus or minus. So as soon as you put in your square root, it's going to be x equals plus or minus the square root of negative 1. The square root of negative 1 is actually just I. So we would say x is equal to plus or minus I. And then that would be our other two solutions. Notice, power of 3, we got 1, 2, 3 solutions. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Something to think about as we're going through these problems. Number 2, we're going to pull out a greatest common factor again, right? 2 comes out of both of those things. X squared also comes out of both of those things. So here we have 2x squared coming out. That's going to leave us with 2x minus 5 is equal to 0. So again, here's one factor, here's the other factor. So 2x squared equal to 0, and 2x minus 5 equal to 0. You solve this for x, you're just dividing by 2. That's still x squared equals 0. Square root both sides. That's x equals 0. So that's one of our answers. Add 5 to the other side. You get 2x is equal to positive 5. You divide by 2 on both sides, and you get x equals 5 halves. So even though this was the third power, right? We got one solution, two solutions. But imagine, right, this is actually a plus or minus 0. So you can think of that as it kind of is like two solutions, but technically is only one because it's just 0. All right. Next up, number 3. Okay, here we have perfect square with a subtraction sign between them. So this is a difference of squares. Difference of squares, you do square root both of them. That's going to give you x squared is our a value. Our b value is 8. So that's going to be x squared plus 8 and x squared minus 8. Always have to check, is there any more factoring we can do here? If no is the answer, then these are our two final factors. So we're going to say x squared plus 8 is equal to 0, and x squared minus 8 is equal to 0. Now we have to solve for x in both of these. We subtract 8 from both sides. That's x squared equals negative 8. Square root both sides. That's x is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 8. And then we always have to simplify irrational and complex solutions completely. So in order to simplify this, right, I like to go 3 branches when it's negative, because you go negative 1, square rooted, right, that's going to be our I. And then we have square root 4, square root 2, so that's going to give us 2. So it's 2i radical 2. So x is equal to plus or minus 2I radical 2. There's two of our solutions. Add 8 to the other side, you get x squared is equal to 8. Square root both sides, you get x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 8. This is square root 4 square root 2. Square root 4 becomes 2. So x is equal to plus or minus 2 radical 2. There's two more solutions. Notice x to the 4th power, we had 1, 2, 3, 4 solutions. Okay, so hopefully you're noticing a pattern. Number 4. Number 4. This is looking like we need to pull a greatest common factor out of here first, because there's an x and a 5 that comes out of both of these. So divide by 5x. That's going to give us that 5x to the front. That's x to the 4th minus, what is 80? 16? Yeah, 16 equals 0. And so that built us a difference of squares. So now we're going 5x, x squared plus 4, x squared minus 4. X squared minus 4 can factor even further. So now we have 5x, x squared plus 4, x plus 2, x minus 2 equals 0. Okay? So this is factored completely, right? We can't factor anything else here. So we have to set each of these factors equal to 0. 5x equals 0. X squared plus 4 is equal to 0. X plus 2 is equal to 0. X minus 2 is equal to 0. So that is x equals 0 here. We have subtract 4 from both sides. X squared equals negative 4. Square root both of those. That's going to be x is equal to plus or minus. This is going to become I radical 4. So that's 2I. Subtract 2 here, you get x is equal to negative 2. Add 2 here, you get x is equal to positive 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 solutions. Let me guess, 5th power, right? 5th power, check it out. Okay, let's keep going. New page, new color. All right, sum of cubes, right? So sum of cubes, what we need to remember is it's a squared, b squared. SOAP fills in the blanks, okay? Because it's a sum, it's going to be plus, so same. O stands for opposite, always positive is the AP in SOAP. So there is our factoring. So the a in this is x, the b value is 5. So a squared is x squared, b squared is 25, and ab is 5x. So let's build the factors here. That's going to be x plus 5, and then we have x squared minus 5x plus 25. This can never factor any further. All right, so that's as good as it's going to get. This is still set equal to 0. So then we have x plus 5 is equal to 0, and we have x squared minus 5x plus 25 is equal to 0. This one is quick and easy on the left. That's x equals negative 5. Awesome. But on the right side here, the only options are either completing the square or the quadratic formula, whichever you prefer. Quadratic formula is kind of what I prefer because it's just plugging numbers into a formula. X equals the opposite of b, so negative 5, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is negative 5 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 25. And then that's all going to be divided by 2 times a, which is just 2 times 1. Let's do some simplifying. That's going to give us 5 plus or minus 25. 4 times 1 times your square root of 25, sorry. 4 times 1 times 25 is going to be negative 100 over 2. 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 75 over 2. And then we need to reduce negative 75. So that's going to be I square root 25 square root 3. So 25 is 5. So then this is going to give us 5 plus or minus 5i radical 3 over 2. Nothing else here reduces. So then this is our final answer. So a lot of work to get there, but that's where we are. X cubed, 1, 2, 3 solutions. Okay. So hopefully now you're starting to see the pattern. All right, number 6. Got to make sure it's set equal to 0 first. So I'm probably going to subtract that 4x squared to the other side. Seems easiest. 4x squared minus 4x squared. So that is going to be 8x to the 5th. 5 minus 4 is 1. So that's going to be positive x squared is equal to 0. X squared comes out of both of those. So it's going to be x squared times 8x cubed plus 1 is equal to 0. Now we have a sum of cubes once again. Our a value is 2x. Our b value is 1. Filling in that factor, it's always a first, so 2x. Same sign because of SOAP, so plus b, which is 1, multiplied by a squared, which would be 4x squared. SOAP tells us the opposite sign comes next. ab would just be 2x, and then b squared would be 1, and the last sign is always positive. So from here, it's still equal to 0. Now we have 2x plus 1 is equal to 0. So subtract the 1. 2x equals negative 1. Divide by 2 on each side, you get x is equal to negative 1/2, just like that. Again, the other side, not nearly as nice, so we have to go 4x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 0. Quadratic formula once again, x equals the opposite of b, so negative 2. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is negative 2 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is 1. All of that is divided by 2 times a, so 2 times 4. That gives us positive 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 minus 16 over 8. We'll slide this up high so that we can see it still. So that is 2 plus or minus, this is equal to, 2 plus or minus square root of 4 minus 16, negative 12, over 8. Negative 12 is going to become I, radical 4, radical 3. Radical 4 is 2. So this is 2 plus or minus 2i, radical 3 over 8. 2 comes out of all three of these terms, so we can divide them each by 2. This is technically 0 on the other side, so it's just like dividing 0 by 2. Okay, so then we reduce this just a little bit. We get 0 is equal to, or sorry, not 0. This is an x. This is x is equal to. X is equal to. All of those divided by 2, so that's going to be 1 plus or minus I radical 3 over 4. And there is our other two solutions. So, fifth power, we had two solutions here. We have one solution here. And then, whoops, I forgot one of our factors is x squared. Need to get those solutions in there. X squared is equal to 0. X is equal to 0. Okay? X squared equal to 0, square root both sides. Technically two solutions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 solutions once again for an x to the 5th power. All right, number 7. Here is our difference of cubes. Okay, so 16x cubed minus 54 is equal to 0. Think about what is going to make 16 a perfect cube 8. So we divide by 2. So 2 is 8x cubed minus 27 equals 0. So now we can get after this a little bit. A is 2x, b is 3. So that's 2x minus 3, because same sign. 4x squared plus 6x, because a times b would make 3 times 2x, which would make 6x, plus 9. So that's 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. So add 3 to both sides. You get 2x is equal to 3. So you get x is equal to 3 halves. You wouldn't need to do this factor set equal to 0 because, right, 2 equals to 0 is not a true statement, so we're not worried about the 2 there. But we are worried about the quadratic there, so we're going to say 4x squared plus 6x plus 9 is equal to 0. So quadratic formula says x is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. All of that divided by 2 times a. So that's negative 6 plus or minus square root of 36 minus 4 times 4 times 9. 4 times 4 times 9. 144 over 8. 36 minus 144 is going to give us negative 108. So this is negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 108 all over 8. Negative 108, we got to find a perfect square that goes into that. So 108, maybe 16. Nope. 108 divided by 4. 4 and 27. So it's going to be bigger than 4 because 4 and 9 makes 36. So 108 divided by 36. There it is. I radical 36 radical 3. So this is going to give us negative 6 plus or minus 6i radical 3 over 8. 2 comes out of all three of these terms again. So we get negative 3 plus or minus 3i radical 3 over 4. And there is our final two answers. So the solving is the large amount of work for these questions. Hopefully you've seen that by now. The factoring, once you have the factoring down, factoring is hopefully not so bad. Solving is taking the absurd extra amount of time here. What is going on with my iPad? Okay, give me a second here. Oh, okay, we're back. All right, next question. So looks like we're on to trinomial factoring, which is kind of nice. Maybe we'll get a couple less x cubed or x squared things that we have to figure out with some quadratic equation. Looks like x squared comes out of each of these. 2 also comes out of all of these. So we'll take the 2x squared out. Should make factoring slightly easier. So that's going to be x to the 4th minus 5x squared minus 24 is equal to 0. So now we have 2x squared here on the outside still, x squared and x squared on the inside. It's going to be plus and minus because of that negative sign. 24, we need to make negative 5. 3 and 8 makes 24, right? So negative 8, positive 3. So that's going to give us, that's it, right? Factoring. This doesn't factor. That is not difference of squares, so it also does not factor. Yeah, so we're good. So 2x squared equals 0. X squared plus 3 equals 0. X squared minus 8 equals 0. So that's x equals 0 here. That's going to be x squared equals negative 3. Square root both sides. You get x equals plus or minus I radical 3. Sorry if I'm solving these a little quick now. If you have a question about where I get these answers from, just let me know. But really, right, radical 3 is I, or negative radical 3 is I, and radical 3. Got to put the plus or minus for the square root. Add 8 to the other side. X squared equals 8. Square root both sides. X equals plus or minus. We'll reduce here. Square root 4 square root 2 is 2. So 2 radical 2. Boom. Double check. We got 6 answers. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. This x squared here accounts for 2 zeros. So, yep, 6 answers. Solid. All right, let's take a look at this next one. Number 9. I'm going to add the 5x, add the 10, add the 5x, add the 10. So we have x cubed plus 2x squared plus 5x plus 10 is equal to 0. This one is 4 terms. 4 terms is always factor by grouping. So group the first 2, group the second 2. Greatest common factor out of the first 2 is x squared. That's going to give us x plus 2. So we need to make an x plus 2 out of here. It looks like if we just divide by 5, that would also give us x plus 2. Perfect. So then we factor out the x plus 2. So that's x squared times x plus 2. Oops. What was I saying? Factor out the x plus 2. X plus 2 moves to the front, right? Both of these terms can factor out. And then x squared plus 5 is what would be left once we factor that out. So there's our two factors. X plus 2 equals 0. X squared plus 5 is equal to 0. So that's x equals negative 2 is one of the solutions. Subtract 5 from both sides. X squared equals negative 5. Square root both sides. You get x is equal to plus or minus I radical 5. Remember, can't keep negatives in the radical. Awesome. Awesome sauce, guys. We're getting there. Move everything to one side. Got to set it equal to 0. I'm adding x cubed. I'm subtracting 5x, so minus 5x. Add x cubed. So that's 2x cubed minus 3x squared minus 32x plus 48 is equal to 0. 4 terms again, so this is a factor by grouping. So x squared comes out, and you get 2x minus 3. So we need 2x minus 3 here, so we're going to pull out a negative. And it must be 16, because 32 divided by 16 gives us 2. So negative 16 would give us 2x. 48 divided by 16 is 3. So minus 3 equals 0. Factor the 2x minus 3 to the front, so 2x minus 3. X squared minus 16 equals 0. X squared minus 16, difference of squares. Celebrate this one. Makes the question easier. So 2x minus 3. X plus 4. X minus 4 equals 0. And then we just do 2x minus 3 equals 0. X plus 4 equals 0. X minus 4 equals 0. So x equals 3 halves, x equals negative 4, x equals positive 4. There's our 4 answers. Or 3 answers, sorry. Cubed, 3 answers. All right, let's see what we got up next. Next up, need to set it equal to 0. And actually, it's easier if your biggest power is set equal to 0. So I'm adding 12x to the 4th, subtracting x squared. Add 12x to the 4th, subtract x squared. So that's 0 is equal to 12x to the 4th minus x squared minus 35. So 3 terms, trinomial factoring. So that's 0 is equal to, just 2 factors here. 12, we have 1 and 12. We have 2 and 6. We got 3 and 4. 35, we have a lot of options as well. 1 and 35, 5 and 7. Okay, not a lot of options. I lied. 2 options. We need 1 in the middle. 3 and 4, 5 and 7. How close can we get there? 4 times 5 is 20. Ooh, yeah. Right? 4, we want 4 times 5, so that's going to be 4x squared. 3x squared. We want it multiplied by 4 times 5 would give us 20. We need negative 1. So positive 20, negative 7. Boom. That's negative 21x squared. That other one would then be positive 20x squared. That would make negative x squared. Awesome. Can we factor any further here? Not a difference of squares, not a difference of squares. So that's going to be it. 4x squared minus 7 is equal to 0. 3x squared plus 5 is equal to 0. So that's 4x squared is equal to 7. Divide by 4. X squared is equal to 7/4. Square root both sides. That's going to be x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 7/4, which you can reduce that. Square root 4 in that bottom becomes 2. So that's plus or minus the square root of 7/2. There's 2 of our solutions. Subtract 5. 3x squared equals negative 5. Divide by 3. X squared equals negative 5/3. Square root both of these, and you get x is equal to plus or minus I radical 5/3. Okay, number 12. That's going to be a trinomial, so that's just our straight up factoring. No greatest common factor comes out of this. So we're going to have to do 1 and 8 or 2 and 4. We have 1 and 1 here is the only options. So it's looking like 2 and 4. So 2x squared, 4x squared. We need positive 2, so positive 1 here, negative 1 there. Equals 0. Here's a difference of squares, so we have 2x squared plus 1. That's going to be 2x plus 1, 2x minus 1. So 2x squared plus 1 equals 0, 2x plus 1 equals 0, 2x minus 1 equals 0. Minus 1, so 2x squared equals negative 1. Divide each by 2. You get x squared equals negative 1/2. Square root both sides, and you get x is equal to plus or minus I radical 1/2. This is just going to be x equals negative 1/2 and x equals positive 1/2. Okay. So hopefully some of the solvings are getting a little bit faster. I get that some take a little bit longer than others, okay? But just keep chugging along through them, guys. And if you have questions on any of these, circle them and ask them in class, okay? All right, this says some extra practice. So if you're feeling good, feel free not to watch these last couple problems. I just want to work through them to make sure you see everything on these notes. If you've been watching the whole video, you should try these extra practices just on your own, okay, without me going through them. But for 13, greatest common factor comes out first. We pull out an x. That gives us x squared minus 8x plus 16 is equal to 0. This is a factoring we've done a billion times. X and x. Positive 16 tells us minus and minus. And it looks like they're both 4. So x equals 0. And x minus 4 equals 0. We only need to write it once, okay? So that's going to be x equals 4. And there's our solutions. 14. Got to get everything to one side. I'm adding 9x to the 4th. Add 9x to the 4th. Subtract 13. So that's 10x to the 4th. That's going to be minus 10 is equal to 0. So both of those are divisible by 10. So 10 on the outside, x to the 4th minus 1 equals 0. Difference of squares, so 10, x squared minus 1, x squared plus 1. Another difference of squares, so 10x plus 1, x minus 1, x squared plus 1. So that's going to give us x equals negative 1, x equals positive 1, and x equals plus or minus I. Here we have minus 16 from both sides, so 3x to the 4th minus 2x squared minus 16 equals 0. Trinomial factoring, so we're going to have 3x squared here. X squared here. 16, we need negative 2. 2 and 8, no, maybe, actually, 2 and 8, yeah. Because if we go positive 6, so right here, positive 2, negative 8, that would make, yeah, negative 2x. So that's 3x squared minus 8 equals 0. X squared plus 2 equals 0. So that's 3x squared equals 8. X squared equals 8/3. Square root. Holy smokes, this is a lot of reducing here. So x is equal to plus or minus. Square root 8 is radical 2, radical 4. So that's 2 radical 2 over 3. And I mean, you could put that plus or minus in the front too, right? Like this. On the other side, minus 2 from both sides, x squared equals negative 2, square root, x equals plus or minus I radical 2. Bam. All right, finally, the last question. Subtract the x squared, subtract the 1. So subtract x squared, subtract 1. That's 5x to the 4th plus 12x squared minus 9 is equal to 0. No greatest common factor here, so 5x squared, x squared. We have 1 and 9 or 3 and 3. So I'm going to start with 3 and 3. Sounds way better. Positive 3 gives us 15. Negative 3 here gives us 15 minus 3, which is 12. Okay, 5x squared minus 3, x squared plus 3, both equal to 0. So that's x squared equals 3/5. So x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 3/5. This is x squared equals negative 3, so that's x is equal to plus or minus I radical 3. There it is, all of the notes for today. Lots of solving, lots of factoring. As always, if you have questions, let me know in my inbox.